America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, we do that again.
Thank you. City Recorder, please call roll.
Mayor Jacola.
Present.
Council President Steinhebel.
Here.
Councilor Conti. Councilor Angelford.
Here.
Councilor Salvas.
Here.
Councilor McLean. Councilor Workman.
Here.
Thank you. Let me put these on so I should be able to do this without glasses, but I'll make sure I get every word. So we'll move on to consent calendar. Following items to consider routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion on these items unless councilor so requests. In that case, the item will be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. Agenda, Lebanon City Council agenda, February 25, 2026, liquor license for Amazing Thai Cuisine. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Consent calendar, it's been moved. There's been a motion to approve. It's been second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. You know, I went to Brownsville City Council meeting last night, and I think I'm the only one that doesn't do this after a motion is approved. I knew I'd get a laugh out of somebody out
That's
there.
going to be a thing. That's going to be a thing.
I'm probably going to jump every time he does it.
We have no presentations or recognition tonight. We'll move on to public comments. Is there no public even here?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to read that. Really, this was just for the consent calendar, if I remember correctly. So items from council, is there any items from council that you would like to bring up and discuss?
No.
Not it.
Move on to public press comments. No press in the room. No,
Man,
Public.
it's lonely in here.
it is lonely. See how fast these meetings go? Next scheduled council meeting will be March 11, 2026. And the regular session is adjourned at 12:02.
Just wanted to give you a heads up.
In history of meetings.
See, you were worried. Yeah.
Set a world record there.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order, the work session.
Lord.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Had to use
And
your
we'll
gloves.
move on to city manager. Should I do it again?
No,
No?
I think we're
Okay.
good. I think we're good. Welcome today. Today, as we discussed at the last city council meeting, we would bring in the consultant for the kickoff meeting to begin the exploration of a potential municipal jail levy. So I would like to introduce to you Betsy Schultz from P&W Strategies. We are under contract with her currently. Sean will be up here as well. Everybody knows Sean. She's going to give you an overview of her scope. I've attached or put at each of your seats basically what her scope is, and then also kind of an outline of what today's meeting will be. But feel free to ask any questions. This is your guys' time to ask those questions, whatever they may be. I know there was a lot from last time that I couldn't answer, and hopefully Betsy can answer those for you. With that, I will turn it over to her and Sean, and they can kind of walk through number 3, scope of services, what that entails, what it looks like, get into the polling, and lots of questions and conversation, I'm sure. So with that, thank you, Betsy, for being here, and Sean.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's good to meet all of you. I don't know if you heard any background about me, but I grew up in the rural Lane County area, came up here to hang out with friends as a kid growing up. So I've always loved Lebanon. So it was a pleasure to get the call and be invited to come and do this work with you. I am really passionate about local level politics. I think sometimes our state and federal landscape can get a little fraught, and so it's just really relieving to me to be able to actually work on things that make a difference in our community. So this is a really exciting project for me. And yeah, so I have in the scope of work, there's 3 phases, and as we spoke with the city manager and staff and Sean and kind of talking through how this might best go, I think the first phase is really centered around synthesizing all of the data that you have from when the jail was built, the budgeting of the city, what the bond situation is for what folks are paying now, the bond coming off, the new potential bond that you're considering, and just all of the ramifications of that. So we have all of the data, and putting that into a poll so that you all can take a look and make a really informed decision about whether or not you want to move forward with that bond proposal or not. So a lot of the work over the next week for me will be working with a pollster who I have worked with in the past. He's done a lot of municipal projects, and I've worked with him in other communities. So he's very familiar with all the various things that one wants to include in a poll. And so I've sent him the initial scope, but I'm waiting on some of the staff to get back to me on some specific details that we want to make sure that we include in that. But my thought really is, we'll do our best to get all of the polling information back to you by your March 25th meeting. So you'll have some time to digest that, and then we can come back at the following meeting for any kind of decision for the go, no go, and then we can move forward if that is what you would like to do. Do you want me to move into the rest of what it could potentially look like, or move forward?
Sure,
with more
yeah,
polling?
absolutely. If you just a brief overview of your scope, I think, just to give them a feel, yes.
Yeah, for sure. So once the decision is made to move forward with putting the bond out for voters, the city staff is really limited in what they can and can't say by law. It's really down to strict, factually based information, no advocacy whatsoever. And so my job in working with your staff would be to make sure that I am providing the most neutral but very informative and factual information for the staff to be able to disseminate, and coming up with creative ways for them to be able to do that, whether that's events in the community. I've had really great success with things called telephone town halls. It's like a live radio show, but it comes to people through their phone line, so they can be at home, they can participate through the phone, hear a live conversation, and that could educate them. Potentially the police chief could be in attendance to talk about what this could mean for the department, for the community as a whole. So, and then also just, like print information, being able to have FAQ sheets for folks so they can really get a feel for where the city has been, where it is, where it's going with the passage of this particular bond. And I think also my job would be to help include, we call it grass tops advocacy, well, not advocacy in this case, but grassroots education and outreach to the business community, to other interest groups in the area, to make sure that they have the information and can get that out to their particular spheres of influence, and also being a conduit of information back to you all and to staff as I'm hearing conversations in the community, which you all as counselors, I'm sure, hear a lot of that information as well, but would want to be doing additional work with that. So I would make sure that we would be on track for making sure that the ballot, that the measure made it onto the ballot, that there was the appropriate ballot language, working with the clerk on all of that, and then coordinating the educational outreach from the city, not any campaign related information, but just that elected, or that educational information. And I will say too, and this, I forget if this is included in here at all, but I know other communities that I've worked with. So I worked with the Springfield, they had a jail levy that they were renewing, and I worked with their group, and what they ended up doing, and this is something that you all could consider potentially, is there's the information that staff and the city and the department can share, and then there's also the role of elected officials can say whatever they would like to say outside of that space. And so there's room for appropriate coordination if there are counselors who want to have a more to set up a PAC and do a more political campaign outside of that. And so there's ways that it can be coordinated so that there's thoughtful message sharing that is very legal. So that's something that I would obviously be available for if that was something that we wanted to move forward with. So that is the scope. The overview of the polling. So I know there's mixed feelings, I think, about how viable polls actually are and how accurate they are. And it really comes down to, I think, both the methodology, how the poll is implemented, and folks are moving now to often a mix of live phone calls and texts to the folks that they feel like would be good respondents for the poll so that they can answer it on their phone. So it's a blend of both. You get better responses that way and also better spread of demographics. So there's that component of how it's delivered, and then there's also the science that goes into identifying what are the likely voters that are going to be turning out in this particular election and making sure that the poll actually is reflective of the turnout. So that's where it really is mostly where the accuracy comes down to, is making sure that the modeling for the projected voter turnout is going to be correct. So the pollster that I work with is very well versed in making sure that, he'll look at previous turnout for Lebanon elections, thinking about there's a gubernatorial race, are there any other ballot measures that are going to be turning out or depressing voters, and just kind of putting all of that into the methodology for who we target and what that would be. As far as the threshold of support, it's kind of industry standard that if you do a poll and the bond looks like it's going to be passing at roughly 50%, that's kind of your golden stamp of approval. Anything over 60, everyone is very delighted by. Under 45%, it's not prohibitive, but at the same time, it's going to require a great deal of effort, and it would take a lot more than just an education campaign by the city for a measure like that to pass. So that's kind of the framework around that. And as far as the questions, this pollster is really good. He kind of has his set questions that he'll often include in polls. Those will be demographics, making sure that we have the right demographics of folks that match the voter turnout. He will probably do just a general favorability of the city, how people feel about that. Top priorities, just to kind of see even where public safety falls within what citizens are thinking about these days, what's top of mind for them. And then a pretty dialed in, and this will be dependent on the data that we're able to get from staff as far as, kind of people's awareness about the jail, if they even know that it was closed, if they know that, and again, the data informs this, but, how many folks are getting arrested but then immediately released that should actually go to the jail. And I think the really key component around this one is if folks are aware of the current bond, what that amount is, and the fact that it's sunsetting. And so this bond measure would actually be, from what I understood, a reduction in what folks are currently paying. So then there's kind of you start at the beginning and uneducated, do you support a bond or not? And then you go through the messages, and then at the end see, with an educated perspective now, would someone vote for it or not? So you can kind of see if the election were held today without any education, where folks are, and then which particular messages move the needle, we hope. And then when we go into the crosstabs of the poll, we can see which demographics responded and resonated with which messaging. And so then as we're working with education, we can say, okay, if we're going to a more retirement-based community to have a town hall, which messages would we want to talk about most or highlight most? So that's kind of where that can be useful. As far as the sample size, for the city of Lebanon, the pollster said that he would be looking for about 315 respondents, and that would get us to a poll of about a 5.5 margin of error. So that's kind of the sizing there. And as far as the city messaging components, I would not recommend doing anything until the poll is done, just because we would want to make sure that it's you're utilizing. I just wouldn't want you to waste time, and I think it also would allow for a really clean baseline for how folks are feeling without sort of any additional or upfront educating prior to the poll. So that's kind of my initial run through, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And Sean can also weigh in on anything that I may have forgotten.
I have nothing to add.
I feel like it's a
Right.
first. Yeah. Thank you, Counselor. Yeah.
Was that on the record?
This is a public meeting, isn't it?
Any questions?
Hi, can you talk to me about the breakdown between, like you mentioned, text messages versus like phone calls, like what the breakdown of that looks like if the pollster would be looking for a certain amount on the, particularly the phone call ones? Because I know that's pretty rich data usually.
Yeah, my guess is they would do more phone calls, and then he often, my understanding is he kind of lets the texting part go for a period of time, and just kind of however many respondents respond, and so that's almost kind of like free information for the city in some senses. But I think it's weighted with more live phone calls than the texting, and then it gets all blended into the demographic modeling to make sure that the respondents are representative, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, yes. And then the respondents, like, is this pollster going to look at more like likely voters, or what are we looking for in a respondent, I guess is what
Yeah,
I'm asking.
absolutely. I mean, so for a November election like this, there's data that we have access to where we can go back and look at people who have voted in the last four general, I guess, like gubernatorial general elections, and so we would target folks who have, I would say, certainly are 4 of 4 voters, we call them. Sometimes they'll go into 3 of 4 just to get enough sample size, but usually there's enough within that 4 of 4 base. So you're not polling people who have voted once out of the last decade of elections. It's the cohort that are the most likely to turn out.
Perfect.
Are the questions polling wise, I'm just trying to imagine, just yes or no type questions? Is there any input that is given? And is there any weight on the passion of the answer?
Yes, so they will ask, and I might not get this information or the name correct, but basically, so they would ask, would you support the city issuing a bond? Very likely.
Levy.
Thank you, Levy. Very likely, somewhat likely, not really likely, and then very much not. And so, yeah, you can see the percentages.
But even in a phone poll, it's not a conversation.
I mean, I think that's up to us when we decide on the actual questions. It can take a lot longer if it's a conversation, so that reduces the number of questions we can ask. But I think as far as the priorities, that one often is an open-ended question, so that they can get a whole breadth versus kind of stacking the deck to say, do you care about homelessness, public safety, or the environment? And then people are stuck. If those 3 aren't their priorities, they're still stuck picking one instead of saying, what is your priority? And then people can just
Is there
give a
some
list.
kind of phasing to the polls that go out? You said that the texts go out, and do you kind of take a sample from that and then readjust how the calls go out? Or do you get kind of a scorecard along the way, or is it just, hey, we're at this and it's done?
Yeah, that's a good question. I believe that they do, for something like this, it would probably run over probably 3 to 5 days, depending on how long it takes to get to that sample size. And so they only call during certain times of the day because they want to make sure that they can get people, right? So it just kind of depends on how quickly they can make enough connected calls to get through to get to that size.
I got you. Thank you.
Where does the pool of phone numbers come from?
Yeah, it comes from, originally, it comes from the Secretary of State, their voter roll that they keep. And then I don't know where this particular pollster gets his data from, but there's vending firms that get that government data, and then they blend it with a whole bunch of other demographic data, your shopping data, you're just like everything to try to figure out as much about you as they can. So they get pretty granular on knowing who those particular people are, but it originates from the Secretary of State.
And all these people are verified to be citizens in Lebanon now.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, and actively registered to vote.
So, I mean, over the last 50 years.
You got to turn your mic on.
Just the rise in, caller ID, spam, robocallers, and all of that kind of stuff. How reliable do you believe, and what a cross section really is it, given the number of people now? And some people claim you actually get about 1% of the people you try to call that actually answer the poll. How reliable do you believe current polling is, at the ability to make those polls, other than a face-to-face conversation with somebody?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I don't answer my phone unless I know who it is, unless I'm in a particularly spicy mood. So I hear that, and yet there are still people who do, and so I think we still have to do the live calls. But I think that's where the texting augmentation comes from too, just to try to get more in a broader demographic. But I will just say, like there's all of the respondents that we get, and then we go, I say we, the royal we, the pollster, who actually knows how to do this, goes through and makes sure that all of the respondents fit within the demographics that we see that are representative of the community, and not just of the community as a whole, but of the likely pool of voters to vote. So we won't just be given numbers that are reflective of the 1% of people that answered the phone that may or may not actually vote. We'll know that they are the likely voter, and some of them will come from the phone and some of them will come through the other method.
Have there been studies to show what kind of the demographics or who are the people that are most likely to answer the phone and take a poll?
I'm sure there are. I don't know off the top of my head. I think of my
People with a
grandparents.
landline.
That's what first comes to mind. I think it tends to be older retirees.
That's what I was thinking too, who
right?
tend not to support taxes.
But they do tend to be supportive of public safety, though. So there is, and again, it comes back to we're going to make sure that the 315 or so valid responses that you get are based off of the age demographic that's representative of who is going to be turning out their ballots, gender, party affiliation, and frequency of voting.
Last question, I promise, and I'm sorry. What's the caller ID going to show when the pollster calls?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I think it's just a, whatever their office number is. I would imagine that they would get a local number, but I would need to confirm that. Yeah. It wouldn't say the city of Lebanon.
What's that?
It wouldn't say the city of Lebanon as
No,
an
I know, but I mean, even if it's a 503 or an 800
Right.
number, your odds of having somebody answer go way, way down.
Right, yeah. Yeah, a random 888 number.
Spam, that's got to get answered.
Yeah.
Is there any, in the demographic points, is there anything, and tread lightly, financial-based, homeowner-based, any of that kind of stuff that weighs into it?
It can. I mean, I would question you all if you feel like that would be helpful information for you to know. We could certainly include that. That may be something, and I will make a note to check and see. It may be something that they know in the voter data information that they get. So I'll check on that.
Okay. And I know we're talking about polling now, but I mean, we voted unanimously that we want this on the ballot, and I think that we want it to pass. You do the polling, how can you consult with us to send the right message, or can you, or do you?
Yes, so I would work with the city to take the information from the poll and package that in the most neutrally persuasive way.
I got you. Okay. Thank you.
So on this particular issue, are the polling questions already developed, or is that a later step?
So they haven't been fully created yet. There's kind of the generic ones that he generally does, and then I have sent him a draft of kind of where I would envision needing to poll, and then he does a really good job of editing those because I'm not a pollster, so I just come up with the question. He's like, well, you really do need to say it this way because he's used to seeing how to frame things to get the most accurate answer, not an answer that you might want, to get you the best outcome. And so I would be working with the city manager and staff to make sure that we have all of the information that's needed and that's correct to be able to test.
We've had a lot of conversation about getting this, other party, the pollster, involved and stuff. To me, it seems like this could be really simple and just a flyer put in the next utility bill and say, hey, do you want to reopen the jail? Here's the information, blah, 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 put it in with your next bill and mail it back if you agree. Is there an opportunity to explore alternate means?
I mean, that would be up to you all. I'm just here to provide information, so that's certainly a method you could consider. I think the tricky part around that would be you would get information for sure, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to have a really great correlation between who's sending it back and their likelihood to vote and their just making sure that the numbers that you got back would really be indicative of who turned out at the ballot. So, it would be a source of information. I feel like it would be a bit more anecdotal
I
than.
think the utility bill might get more people who are mad at us for our
Yeah,
utility bills.
Well, and if I can add a small,
I wasn't going to say that,
And,
but yeah.
and timing wise, that'd be tough because I think we're looking to get results back by the meeting the 25th. That's a month away.
yeah, so if I can add a small thing to that. So our utility bills, yes, they go out every month. At this point, we've already sent the ones that we're going to send now. This wouldn't be able to go on the next bill until the end of March. So timing wise wouldn't work. And we have a lot of folks, we do a lot more e-distribution of bills out through email.
Or
That
auto
doesn't
payments.
have a lot of
I've
these
never seen
messages.
my
I
water
don't even
bill.
look at my
Right,
bill.
most people don't even look at the bill if they receive the bill, right? They're looking at the number, they're looking to write the check and maybe grunt a little bit while doing so. But ultimately, we don't get a lot of participation off of those bills. Just for comparison's sake, we did put like that city communications survey on the utility bill. And what was the overall number? Not necessarily from the utility bill, but just how many participants in that communication survey?
Oh, for the communications survey that we just did?
Yeah.
Oh, I think we had 70 some.
Yeah, so
70-some
it
responses.
wasn't a good, unfortunately, it's not a good, yes, it gets out there to a few people, but a lot of folks don't read through that, unfortunately.
The best sample would be, and you guys may not like this, but there's 7 of you here. If you all went out and talked to 50 people at random in each of your wards and come back, you'd have a sampling of 350. Anyways, I used to be fascinated with polling when it used to, and I just have less confidence because of what I was saying. It makes me nervous, and they seem to be getting less and less reliable. But I see it as a great tool, and I have a lot of respect for that, all the science and technology and numbers that go into proper polling.
So I think on the March 25th meeting, the pollster would be here, correct? And
That-
give an overview. Okay, that'd be perfect because then.
I haven't confirmed his schedule yet, but yes, we
Okay, perfect.
work to make that
In
happen.
the meantime, would we get some sort of copy of what the questions were more specifically so we'd know what was being asked?
So if those go out, when would you expect those questions to go out to the public or be asked?
Yeah, I would think around the week of March 11th
Okay,
would be doable. Yeah.
okay. So we could bring those back to the council meeting, or I can email them to the council as well if we get them before, if that works for y'all.
Yeah.
Unless you're wanting to be involved in the creation of the questions.
Well, I think
Which point?
it might be nice to see like a rough draft of them or something ahead of time, just so I got an idea. Because I don't answer my phone, and I'm kind of the same concern. If my phone, I'm in the collections business. Nobody answers our phone calls. We text them, they answer on their own time. But that does concern me, and I'd like to at least have a draft of the questions,
We can
kind of.
definitely get you a draft. I think if you wouldn't be able to necessarily make any changes to that draft as an individual
Well, that's not what a draft is called.
Sorry.
That is a copy.
That's a final copy.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, we'll definitely get you those.
Is there a possibility, they did the Springfield one, is it possible to share the questions that were asked in that polling?
I
Or is that
don't
against
know if
somebody's
they-
laws?
I don't know if they did polling in that one,
Okay.
but I will dig back in my files and see what I can find.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing is you could postpone a bit and we could push a little and you could bring back the questions that were going to be asked to the March 11th council meeting for the council to debate those questions. Otherwise, you're not going to get a real, if you see something that you don't like, it
No, I get it. And
couldn't necessarily change
Right.
that based on that.
I mean, I think that's kind of putting pressure and taking pressure. The way they do these, and again, I have experience with them a long time ago, is, you're paying for for them to ask the right questions.
Yes.
And
Yes.
any influence that this council has in what those questions are may impact the result, either negatively or positively. And that's not what you want. You want as good a results as we're possible to get.
Yeah.
And
I mostly want to know because if somebody asks us about, hey, I got this
No.
poll.
I think you can get notification of what the questions are going to be very easily.
Okay.
Yeah, which we can definitely do that. And
I'd just like to know that ahead of time before they popped out and people
Yeah,
ask
and
me.
before the, if they're out before the March meeting, I'll send them out on email.
Perfect, thank you.
Having worked on other polls, is this pollster going to give them some information and then build that information as they go and see if their views change at the end? So, maybe they didn't know the jail was closed, and then at the end of the poll, they've learned, the jail was closed for X reason, and the bond comes, they've learned all this information, and then they've changed their mind. Is that captured in the poll too?
That's my understanding. Yeah, I don't have a draft of it yet. I just sent him a bunch of information, but my understanding is that yes, they do the initial. Would you
Ask,
support this or
yes.
not? And then here's the various messaging that we know and kind of want to test to see, do people care about the fact that people are getting arrested and then have nowhere to go? There's no accountability for them. And then, yeah, at the end, then there's that kind of informed ballot question so you can see the swing from one to the other.
Perfect. Yep. That's what was most interested in seeing in the draft is that progression in questions and if it change, if there's an opportunity at the end for them to change their mind. So.
I'm glad you asked that question because I was sitting here thinking about if you were to ask them, would you support opening the jail? And most people most likely would be like, well, it would be more tax money, right? But we have the opportunity because we have a bond that's falling off. And they actually would increase their city services at a lower rate than they're currently paying. And I know a lot of people are like, well, yeah, of course. They like to see savings. And I wasn't sure. I'm glad you asked that because I'm naive to polling. I am. And I'm glad you asked that because now I understand, okay, that's how they'll go about that. And that question would be in that, additional information
Yeah.
for later on. So, okay.
Yeah, and my understanding in the initial conversation that I had with the pollster was with this budget of $7,500, we can get between 10 to 15 questions, depending on how long the questions are and involved. So, there won't be a large progression, given that we need to do some of those demographic questions, but there will be enough to be able to get that before and after.
Is that, you had mentioned the texting polling. Is that pretty much just a yes or no? I'm trying to think how you would get a poll answer from a text
Yeah,
that
it
is
would-
just reply yes if you're in support, no if you're not, or is there like some kind of computer program that's sending out additional questions as the answer?
So it's a kind of, I don't know if you've seen like kind of Google Sheets, or not Google Sheets, but Google Forms before, where, you fill in, you answer one thing, and then kind of the next option comes up for
Yeah,
you. So if
yeah.
you're looking at it on a
Party foul.
phone screen,
Yeah.
there's one question, and then you answer that, and then the next one populates.
So it's a link to a survey?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, and then there'll also be I haven't seen this particular pollster, but because I haven't lived in territories and been his demographic, but I've seen other ones like this where there'll be the question and it'll be like, do you somewhat support, very much support, so they give you those options too. So it's basically, you get the exact same ability for nuance that you would with the live call.
I'm just thinking out loud here. It seems like to me that the text to a survey, especially if it's at Lebanon and you're a Lebanon resident, you'd be more apt to do that than a phone call going, Klamath Falls, because I get those all the time.
Right.
Google number, right? So I kind of lean towards like the text thing where it's like, hey, would you be willing to do a survey for City of Lebanon concerning whatever, the jail reopening or whatever? Because I think there'd be more people that would respond to that. Because it's kind of that safety thing. Oh, it's from Lebanon. Okay, I can hit that.
Well, nowadays, somebody's going to see a link in there and they'll be scared to click on the link too.
Well, and
Way-
the other
way
thing,
world works.
That's why we get them with the live calls.
and then the other thing is you do answer those calls, and the first ring and you say hello, if no one answers, they're waiting for you to say another word, and then they pick it up, and then I hang up on them. So would that be the same thing with this type of polling where the person on the other end of the line, not the respondent, but the person asking the questions would be waiting for them to
Is
say
there a
2 words?
delay? Yeah. I honestly don't know what they're, like, if they have a calling software or quite what that looks like. I do know for a fact that the firm is an Oregon firm, but their calling center is based in Idaho, and they make sure that people sound,
Got it.
From this area? Okay.
Message received.
Not tech support. No offense.
they
no
don't
offense
get
about tech
nice
support.
Georgia accents, unfortunately.
Looking for the word redneck?
No.
There, we got your quote for the week.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's this quote for the week.
There it is.
Close, Dave.
No media that's present. Yeah.
Is there any other, on that note, is there any other questions?
I would say just keep it simple and honest. I think the texts are the best idea. Simple and honest.
Yeah, you need the most informed information to be, or the best information to make the most informed decision.
As long as it's molded to our whims. It's a kid, just kidding. It's a joke.
So we'll get a list of questions emailed out to the city council, and away we go.
Thank you.
Final questions. Or the draft, right?
Yeah,
Final.
we'll get the final questions.
Okay.
Yeah. Or if you want the draft, I can get those too. We can do draft final.
If it's going to be the same thing.
Those
Well,
words
when I was
don't really
saying-
go together.
220,
I
221,
wouldn't have
just get us a
problem
list
if
of the
council
questions.
had questions about the questions ahead of time. I just didn't think it was made sense to have like a debate at
I
a city council
agree.
meeting over the questions.
I actually agree with you. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
We will
what
get
we're
the
receiving.
final questions
you.
emailed out to you. How's that?
Thank you.
Okay.
Does that conclude this?
I think we're good.
Is that everything?
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Not for me.
Okay.
I need this today. If you
Well,
could go
thank
ahead and gavel us
Thank you
out.
so much, and look forward to this poll. So on that note, nope, that wasn't a strike. This meeting is adjourned at 12:36.